Hello, tutors. We are about to start the human body part of this year. We're going to be working through this all of second quarter, and this is what we have for the first week of that, week 7. So I did find 3 sets of crayons, so you guys won't have to rearrange your schedules or anything. We'll just have to have the first 3 classes that do science take the crayons first, and then either drop them back in the hallway or pass them to one of the classes that do science second. So we actually have a few organs to work on each week, and this week is going to be the brain and the heart and the kidneys and bladder. So what you're going to need is gray crayons and gold crayons for the brain, blue and red for the heart, and then we have a darker red for the kidneys and a lighter red for the bladder. I mentioned to you guys that I wanted to maybe print out these little booklets for the kids, and I had done this in the past, and it just includes the descriptions of each body part. When I went to do this year, I realized that is probably going to be a problem with copyright stuff, so I'm going to do without that. Hopefully families have these at home anyway, that they can look over the descriptions if their kids are interested again or want to check anything out. But I will bring these ones that I have just in case any of you forget your book one week or something like that, so that you have something to look at. So that's where you should look if you happen to not have your book for a week. I have these copies for each of you, for all your students. And what you're going to do basically is have your students color these different parts as you look in your My Body book and read the different descriptions. So here, for example, is the brain. I made the copy of the coloring page, and you will read, it's actually before the coloring page, so this is the page that you're going to be reading them while they color that part, and so on. For the younger classes, these are probably plenty of a description, and for the older classes, you might want to think about looking up some interesting facts in addition to what is in the book, but that is totally up to you. So the last thing for this week is that we want to start tracing the students' body outlines so that we're ready for the last week when we go to assemble all of these parts. So my suggestion would be to probably trace a few students each week. And again, it kind of depends on the age. The younger students are probably going to need more help tracing the bodies. They might not do a good job paired up as students tracing students. But that might be a really good option for the older classes. You might be able to get your body outlines done really quickly if you can pair up your students in classes that are old enough to do a pretty decent job at tracing a friend's outline for them. So this week I will also bring I'll bring a big roll of paper, and I plan to try to pre-cut a length that's good for tracing student bodies. But just be aware that if I don't have enough cut this week for you to do your whole class, you might want to just think about sending a parent out to make sure and maybe pre-cut some more pieces if I don't get to it all this week. And that is it for science. We're going to move over now to the music theory and the tin whistle. So what I did for this week is, this is the copy that I made for the parts of the tin whistle. So I have a page for every student. You can either take these for each student and have them actually fill them out and bring them home. Or if you don't prefer to have the younger kids try to write these in, you might want to just use this and show them as you go through the parts. You can find this type of picture in your foundations guide, all labeled for your reference, but I also have these two laminated copies if it's easier for you to grab one of those instead of looking it up in your book. In addition to the parts of the tin whistle, the whole quarter is, or this whole cycle is based on Yankee Doodle. So I have made you copies for each student. And I mentioned that a lot of years I like to make copies without the fingering guides on them. Your foundations guide looks like this, and it has these fingering charts. And what I found when I was tutoring the older kids is that I would have liked them at that point to start memorizing which fingerings were which note. But there's not a good way to do that if the fingering charts are right in front of them. So what you're going to find is these page protectors. And as you can see, they each have the fingering chart on one side and the non-fingering chart with just the music on the other side. So you guys can work with that however you want and kind of cater to your students and how much they know. I would just encourage the older students to start practicing that memory. But there's this option as well. Another option that I would like to see, but it's totally just that, it's an option. I went ahead and did these four differently highlighted pieces for Yankee Doodle. And what I was thinking is if you have a class that you think can memorize, or at least they don't have to memorize it, but looking at the music, play the piece pretty well. I just thought it would be pretty neat on the last week if we got the whole community together and did kind of like a combined piece. I looked at all the notes, and what seems to be the trickiest, I've circled on each piece, and you'll find that the kids may or may not have a hard time, depending on their age and their hand size, of switching between one finger and no fingers, or other things and no fingers, because it's a little tricky to hold your tin whistle with no fingers, and you got to get the hang of supporting it with your thumbs, just your thumbs and pinkies, and going back and forth. So the number one piece is one that does not have that at all. The number two piece only has this one instance of it. Number three has three of those notes. And number four also has three of those notes. When I played through it myself, I thought that number three was a little bit easier than number four. So I would suggest that if we can make this happen, that younger kids obviously would work on this number one easy piece, and so on. But we might find that obviously, like, that students in the same class, even older students, you might have students that are, more skilled than others. So as we go through these weeks, you can just let me know if you think that this is a possibility that we want to work toward. I thought it would sound cool if we had everybody together and we were kind of switching between one little group playing this first one, and then the next group playing the second, and so on. So you guys can let me know how that's going and whether you'd like it to be something that we're working toward at the end. And that's it for this week. Thank you.